Hello, today's topic will be homeowners transitioning to first-time landlords. Stay tuned.
Welcome to a show focusing on educating property owners, tenants, and real estate professionals in all areas of property management and real estate in general. A forum to discuss important aspects of managing rental properties, as well as sitting down with various guests to get their insight on the property management world. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Bridgeman Properties video podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Pete Candelario.
Hi, I'm Jason Bridgeman.
And we want to welcome you to the second episode of the Bridgeman Properties podcast. If you did not check out our first episode, you can go to our YouTube channel and check that video out. Please visit it and subscribe, comment, hit the thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever you like, I guess.
Right.
And just leave us some comments of the good and the bad, the ugly. All right, and today we're actually going to be talking about first-time landlords or property owners that become first-time landlords. So I'll let Jason go right into it.
Right, today we want to focus on the what we see a lot in San Antonio. As we've discussed in the past, I do believe it's something that is geographically challenged or city-to-city challenged, just based on the makeup of that particular market. Some areas do have, like here in San Antonio, they have a heavy military presence, technology presence, medical training facility presence. Just different industries within different market centers will kind of dictate the pace at which homes turn over.
Right.
And when that turnover could be a multitude of different reasons. You could be downsizing. We seem to find individuals as they get older, sometimes will downsize into a smaller home, and then you have individuals that will be going through a move up, or will be progressing in their life in such a manner that allows them to move into a larger home,
Or they're having more kids.
Having more children, having more kids, expanding their family. So, different scenarios within everyone's life will kind of dictate whether they're downsizing, whether they're moving up. And then we also have individuals that are investors. And those investors could be a small investor that maybe wants to own one or two, or large investors that's where they've diversified their portfolio, say, and want 10, want 20, want 100 properties. So the topics that I wanted to focus on today was, what will make you a landlord? Whether that landlord situation was by choice or was it by default?
Right, and you were talking, the scenarios you were just talking about were obviously everything by choice, right? Somebody's either going to want to downsize because they're empty nesters now, they don't need such a big house, or if they want to actually purchase a new house, a bigger house, because one, they may want to, or two, they may have some more kids, or
they might be forced to. They may need to.
Right. Like for me and Denise, we actually bought a bigger house because we wanted a bigger house, and I wanted a little bit more land than just a cookie cutter subdivision that I was in. And then I had to make mine an actual rental at that time. But that was by choice. So
did you? That brings up an interesting topic. Did you? Had you owned that first property? And I know we talked about this yesterday, that you didn't buy your first home until late in your military career.
Right.
Did you have to make that first home a rental based upon your equity position, or did you choose to make it a rental property?
We had to make it a rental property because we bought it in 2008, and it was 2011 when we moved. So we only had 3 years.
Which is a perfect scenario on one of the categories that we're talking about, is that you were in the same position that a lot of homeowners find themselves in. Regardless, when I talk about homeowners, investors aside, and we're going to get into some of the other default reasons, but investors aside, you found yourself in the same exact scenario. Now, you were choosing to move up based upon your own personal wants, needs, and desires.
Right.
But at the same time, you had a negative equity position, meaning you owed more on the property than what you could sell it for at market value. So you created your own situation of
Becoming a landlord,
right? And you didn't know that going into it.
and I didn't know anything about becoming a landlord.
You didn't know anything about becoming a landlord.
That's some of the things we're going to be covering today. So that is by choice, and then there's obviously property owners that become landlords by default. They're given the properties. They either have to job transfer, PCS for militaries.
That's one of the things that has perplexed me over the years is that you don't realize how many times until you're in this industry, you don't realize the number of times within any geographical location that happens, right? You don't focus on that, but then when you dig into this, get into the industry, get into the trenches, you realize that your default landlords, and I guess that would be a good tool or a good measuring would be, okay, how many individuals have become landlords by choice versus default? That would be
Right.
some amazing statistics, I think, that show, okay, I want to be a landlord. Then when you get into default, you're looking at military, permanent change of stations, job transfers, life situations,
Yep.
divorces, passing away of family members, and then you have individuals that are willed properties. So we've helped and continue to help numerous individuals that a family member has passed away, and next thing they know, you own 10 rental properties.
Yeah.
You own 15 rental properties. You own 20 rental properties. And
What do you do now?
well, what do you do now? But then let's make that more difficult because you own now 20 homes. And even being in this industry, if I gave you 20 homes tomorrow in Seattle,
Yeah.
what does that do to your infrastructure, for your personal infrastructure, and then your professional infrastructure? So, I mean, there's a multitude of ways that you could be landlord by choice, landlord by default, and then let's compound that. Well, like Brian's our property manager. Brian is a landlord in Virginia.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, he has a property in Virginia that
So when
he
folks,
bought when he was still active duty.
so the good thing about that is when folks are talking to Brian, he gets it, right? So he gets it that he's here, his property's there. All of the personal ties, the professional ties, the emotional ties, which we'll get into.
Right.
He's going through all that, and that's some good things to know when you're actually managing other people's properties. That hey, this is what goes on. So we're going to cover all of those different things we talked about. The by choice, the default. We'll cover all those today. But I think that it's great that hopefully some of this will hit a nerve with some individuals and they'll say, you know what, that's exactly what I'm dealing with. And that's our goal with this is to say, hey, we may not have all the answers, we may not have all the solutions, but we feel confident that we know the people within the industry that can
Right.
get you those
And we're
that
just
can get you those
talking
questions.
basically from experience, right? So most of the things or the topics that we're going to bring up are just down and dirty topics that we see each and every day in the property management arena. and
Right.
stuff, so.
Well, I guess our hopes are to give people the answers to the questions that they need to hear rather than what they want to hear.
Right.
And that's what we see a lot is tell me what I need to know, don't tell me what I want to know. And that's, in my mind, that's the best way to have someone help you manage your investment and manage one of the largest assets or multiple largest assets that you'll probably ever own in your life.
Right.
So again, the information we have will hopefully help individuals make better decisions and educated decisions as they press forward.
So for the rest of the podcast, obviously we're going to be covering some specific information, but the majority of our owners, and we do manage close to 500 properties, the majority of our owners are military individuals. They are the landlords by default. And when they become that landlord or they have to leave and they have to put their house on the rental market, they don't know where to begin.
Right.
So,
and that's what that's our focus.
Yeah, and that's
right.
what we're going to cover is how do you start when you are a first-time landlord?
Right.
When you have a property or when you are thinking of making your personal home into
A rental property.
A rental property.
Yep. So let's get into the very first topic that we want to cover is what do you do? What do you do? What exactly does a homeowner need to do to get started and be a first-time landlord? What exactly do we need to do? And some of the things that we've always believed in and some of the information that we do pass on to clients that we deal with is that you need to find a property manager and you need to find a professional property management company. Obviously, that's licensed real estate agents, licensed real estate brokers, and those individuals that do this every day for a living and that's their one thing that they specialize in, they're going to be able to help refer you and help get you in touch with the right people.
Right.
And the folks that they should have at their disposal would be a great real estate attorney and a great tax professional. Because when you get into this, you don't realize it, but there are good, bad, and indifferent situations that are then going to come into your life. And we see this all the time, right? You own a home, all of a sudden you're a landlord, questions pop up about how do I hold this property? And when I say how do I hold this property, do I keep it in my own name? Do I put it in an LLC? And then the LLC versus your own name rolls over into affects your tax status.
Right.
And advantages and disadvantages of holding it. So I'm not going to go.
Home ownership, there's a lot of tax advantages in home ownership anyway, but and then when you make it a rental, there's additional tax advantages.
There's a lot more
that a tax professional can
right
help an individual out.
There's a lot more, and I know more is relative in speaking, but there are several other advantages to owning a rental property, and some of those advantages can be expanded based on how you hold that property personally or in an LLC. We're not going to get into any of that.
Right.
I mean, we're not tax professionals. We're not attorneys. We see it all the time. We have a pretty good understanding of how that works. But the key in all of that is you could go at that blind. You could go find your own attorney. You could go find your own tax professional. My point is, every property manager I know in town, and I think all of them that do it on a professional basis, all of those individuals are going to be able to help you and lead you down a path of very good and productive knowledge.
Right.
So my first advice or my first piece of information that I would give to anyone that is in the position of becoming a first-time landlord or a landlord is find a professional property management company and find someone that you can work with. Find someone that you can be in a relationship. I think it's Brian. I think Brian is the one that says, find someone that you could be in a car ride with for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And that pertains to lots of different things, right? Hiring people, getting married, whatever be the case. But find a property manager that you could get in a vehicle with and drive to Wichita Falls. Drive 8 hours with, and if you can get along with that person, then they're probably going to be someone that's great to get into a relationship with.
So obviously the first recommendation is to seek out a property management company.
Right.
And then that property management company will have the resources as far as a tax professional
Correct.
that they can
Yes.
refer or some lawyers that they can refer because of everybody's situation is different, right? As far as a rental property, there is a lot of tax advantages, but the upfront financial portion may be different, right?
Well, I think that's a huge. That's just a huge
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
that's a
gonna be
huge
a
thing you
second
said,
topic
right?
right there.
So we see this all the time. We see lots of individuals that are contemplating making their property a rental property. We see it time and time again to where individuals are considering making their property a rental property. They talk to someone that thinks they know about property management, but they they don't get the information they need. And that key information up front is there's going to be an initial expense to get this property up to code.
Right.
And we're going to talk about those.
Yeah, we'll talk about those topics, and I don't think the initial expense is usually not coming from the property management company. It's in preparation or preparing the property to become a rental.
We could create a whole separate podcast about that. But what I would say is if you're in that situation and there's a potential that you will be making your property a rental property, however that becomes a rental property, call us, email us, and let us give you a breakdown of the minimums.
Right.
The minimum things within the Texas Property Code, all of the different requirements of a rental property in the state of Texas. Call us, email us. We can send you over our information. And then that way, that's going to help you make a decision. Because we get folks, the majority of the time, we get folks that have already made that decision.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a rental. I bought a new house. Hey, it's a rental. I've left. And then it's a shock to them. So instead of us listing them out now, I would say make contact with us and let us get you the information you need beforehand so you can make an educated decision on what that expense is going to look like to get it up to code.
And we can obviously provide information for anybody, but obviously most of our owners are, well, I won't say that. Most of our properties are here in San Antonio or in the outskirts of San Antonio. We do have a couple properties in Austin and stuff. Well, but those are the ones that we work with, but other property management companies can pretty much provide you the same information.
The good thing about it is through our Keller Williams network, through the agents that we work with, I'm confident that we can find you a property manager anywhere, almost in the world. I think we can find you a property manager wherever you need a property manager. We can get you in the right direction.
Yeah. So basically, if you send us some questions or an email on things, if it's not something that we can handle here in San Antonio, obviously we will be referring it out to a KW agent anywhere in the world, really, right? Because we have KW agents.
Well, I think they're in 37 countries, I believe now. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. But one thing I did want to say was, so our first recommendation is to contact a property management company, not necessarily us personally, but obviously if you want to contact us, great. But any property management company can give you this information. But some owners want to try to self-manage. They want to try to do it themselves. Kind of like when I first started, I actually called my realtor out, and she sent her property management guy, and we sat down for an hour and a half talking about my house, making it into a rental, because Denise and I were moving out into a larger house, and he didn't want to manage my property because he was at his cap. He had 100 properties that he was managing, and he wasn't managing any more than that. And he gave me advice on what to do to put it on the rental market.
Right.
I did not look for any other property management companies. So.
And this is back when you were military, right? You weren't you didn't even.
I was still active duty.
You didn't even know how to spell real estate at that time. You didn't.
No, I had no idea. I didn't even think I was going to get into real estate. But I became a landlord. I put out, ads to try to find a tenant, and luckily that one real estate agent actually ran or screened those tenants for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and once I got those tenants in the property, they were fine. I had no problem.
Who did the lease for you?
So he did the lease.
The agent. The agent that brought them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he did everything for me, but he wouldn't manage it.
Okay. Oh, so that individual that came out and looked at your property, did everything, and then said, "Here you go."
Here you go.
Okay. And we see that a lot too.
Right. And luckily, I had a good tenant in there, and I really didn't have a problem until I got into real estate and actually saw that I wasn't managing the property correctly or legally.
Well, like you said, we personally and professionally do not think that it's a good idea to self-manage properties. And the only reason we say that is based upon the facts of the nightmares and the pitfalls that we've seen, right? Yeah. Now, we would love for every person out there that needs their property managed to call us. But even more so than that, I would say call a property manager. Have a property manager help you manage the largest asset that you may ever own.
Right.
And if it's not us, it's not us. And I understand that we're not for everyone, but we'll get into having someone help you manage that largest investment. And whether it's us or another company, I think that's very important.
Yeah, it's the reason. The reason for managing the properties or having a property manager is because of all the legal parameters that goes into managing a property, or having your property as a rental,
Exactly.
as a landlord. And so, like I said, when I started managing my own property, I had no problems with that tenant for the first year. Actually, they were a military couple as well, so I really didn't have any problems. Even though we can get into some just general tenants later on, probably not in this podcast. But anyway, once I retired from the military and I got into real estate and I got into property management, that's when I saw that there was a lot of things that if I did not have a good tenant, if I would have had a difficult tenant in there, they could have turned around and brought a lot of legal issues towards me.
Well, the deal with that is, I think everybody here knows I'm a fan of Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So the way I look at individual homeowners managing their own rental property, finding their own tenants, if you want to go to Vegas, play roulette, you want to play 21, you want to play craps, whatever you want to play, you might be a good. They could have a table in Vegas, landlords, right? And you might be a good landlord gambler, and we've talked to homeowners that have had great tenants for 3 years, 6 years, and then all of a sudden
they put in another tenant.
They hit, just like in Vegas, they hit a string of bad luck, and they're like,
not even another tenant, right? They might be the same tenant. It's just life happens to the tenant as well, just like the owners.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people do is they focus on what's the first bad thing that could go wrong. It may not be the tenant, right? No. Think of some of the nightmares within our industry that we see. Everybody wants to first focus on that tenant. What we see and what I see is you have a great tenant. What about the two neighbors?
Yeah.
What about the HOA situation we're dealing with right now? We have an awesome tenant, in a textbook tenant that does everything we want that tenant to do, but the president of the HOA lives next door. And the president of the HOA is not pro-tenant, so the president of the HOA is continually discriminating against our homeowner's lawn and causing our tenant now to want to leave.
Yeah.
What about a house that when you first started renting it out was 6 years old, now it's 16 years old, right? And everything that could happen to it maintenance-wise is going wrong.
It's going wrong.
So when we talk about being a landlord, being a gambling landlord by yourself could go and does go great for lots of homeowners.
Right.
But there is a great possibility, and the odds are against you, that at some point in time you're gonna hit a string of bad luck, whether that be tenant, property, HOA, neighbors. There's a chance that's going to happen. And what I want to make sure that everyone understands is if you're doing it and you're doing it at a highly effective level and you're managing your own homes, great. I think that's commendable.
Well, there's a lot of individuals that go in there as investors, and they may purchase one property or make one property a rental, and then they actually like it, and they actually start going out and looking for more properties.
Exactly.
And they actually want to leave their full-time job, whatever,
and go do that,
and just manage properties and invest in properties and things of that nature.
Well, we just need to make.
Those individuals are usually educated in.
They have some type of background in real estate. Their family was in real estate, and some of them aren't.
They know,
but
or they go out and learn.
But I think it's important for everyone to understand is if you're doing it at a highly effective level, great. We commend that. If you need help, if you run into that streak of bad luck, and or if you don't even want to risk getting into that streak of bad luck, that's why we're here. That's what we want to do, is be able to help people that need that knowledge.
So some of the legal parameters that a landlord needs to abide by would go, with obviously the lease, the Texas Property Code, fair housing, the Disabilities Act when you're screening tenants and stuff. Same thing with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. There's building codes, fire codes, HOA, which you mentioned. So a lot of these things, normal landlords or normal property owners that have become landlords or first-time landlords normally do not know about this information, because I didn't know about any of that information.
And typically you wouldn't. Typically you wouldn't, right? If you're, I didn't know about it. I mean, I'm not proud to say this, but I was in real estate. I was working with buyers. I was working with sellers. I was a general real estate agent and had
no clue.
Well, I would say I was very ignorant to the property management arena. And what happened was I had a large number of doors that I leased out myself. I had no clue about keyless.
We see that a lot, though. We see a lot of realtors that will do rentals. They will find tenants for rentals, but they really don't know the property management.
Well, it's and the reason that I see that happening is there's no malicious intent on their part.
No.
Zero malicious intent. But what happens is we're in an industry that is multifaceted. Okay, so it's like opening the wire diagram underneath the hood of a Ford, right? Where do you go first? So real estate agents are going to take advantage of the opportunities that present to them to make financial gain within their professional life, right?
Well, it's
so
the one thing that we were talking about last time.
And that's what happens. That's what happens. I did it. Every agent does it. And again, there's no malicious intent, but what happens is they're looking for different avenues to make money, which is what anybody's going to do.
I mean, it's their job.
So what I was getting at is I was just as guilty. I was listing houses in MLS that I owned. I was leasing out the houses that I owned in MLS. I was doing the lease, which I didn't know anything about. And the reason all that's done is because it's two separate industries. A lot of folks don't want to recognize that, but a large majority of the folks do understand that general real estate, property management, landlord, leasing, tenant landlord law are two separate industries. And you could educate yourself on everything. You could be like George Kavanaugh. If you've not listened to that individual that's up for Supreme Court right now, he's an encyclopedia. But he spent his whole life becoming that encyclopedia. Right. You could do the same thing within the real estate industry, but the majority of individuals are going to focus on one facet. And I guess with me saying all of this is that I didn't know anything about Texas Property Code. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I know anything about Texas Property Code. I know anything about keyless deadbolts, peepholes, smoke alarms, and all the
fire codes, building codes.
Building codes. What you can charge someone for an NSF check. What you can charge someone.
Enforcing the lease in general, right?
So lots of things, and then all of that will come back to haunt you again. You could be having that amazing streak of great luck. You've done all these. You've done the leases. You've done you've done the leasing. You've done the lease. You've done the management. You've had all this great success, and then you do one thing wrong, and that tenant takes you to court. Right.
Right.
It kind of like.
It only takes.
Well, what we talk about.
Yeah.
Certain individuals have, and I'm not going to get into any type of political deal, but some individuals have hired one person within their management, and one bad decision, now the person's going to prison for life, right? Or one bad decision, and you're jeopardizing your portfolio, you're jeopardizing your rental house, your personal house, all of your assets. So getting advice and using that advice and using that to your advantage is the most important thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Even if you're in the industry. if you're not a property manager or a leasing agent full time, I'm not saying you cannot know what we do, but if it's not your main focus, it's difficult. It's
You're
difficult.
not specializing in it.
It's
like you always
difficult.
say, as far as like you can be a doctor, right? But there's also specializations in the doctor field, right? There's heart surgeons, there's proctologists.
Yeah, you're not going to the allergy doctor to get diagnosed with a heart murmur.
Yeah.
You could maybe that allergist will charge you less money, but you're not going to the endocrinologist to tell you that you need open heart surgery.
Yeah.
Talking about respecting the process and kind of to wrap up where we started off with all this was you becoming a first-time landlord. You're emotionally attached to the property. You've lived there for however long. You've lived there, you've raised your family, whatever be the case.
Right.
You're emotionally attached to that property. And some people aren't. Some people have never lived there. Some people have bought the property or got willed the property or however they got that property. Some people aren't. Some people are like, hey, I don't care, get it rented, but there's still a control factor there. So you have to be able to detach yourself from that property and let a professional property management company manage your investment. Because 9 times out of 10, like I was doing, I was managing my investment with emotions. And knowing what I know today, I failed to understand that I don't manage any of the money. I don't manage any of my money that my stock folks have. I don't manage any of my money that the mutual funds people that I deal with have. Because if I was doing that, so let's say your home's your first largest asset. Some people's situations, your car is your next biggest asset. Then some people, their finances, their money, what Dave Ramsey says, your largest investment and your largest net worth is your income.
Right.
So if you're letting someone else manage your money, you're doing that because you don't want to manage that money with emotions. If you did, you're sitting there watching the stock market, you're watching the news, you're watching all these things, and next thing you know, you're trading all over the place, and you're jeopardizing those funds that you've invested. It's the same exact thing in my mind with a property.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have that trust with the property management company, right? And I like to bring up Brian. Brian is always talking to owners constantly on the phone, and I think maybe we'll bring him in on these podcasts
Right.
As well, because he is very knowledgeable in every aspect, even though he's only been doing property management for 3 or 4 years now.
He didn't become a chief master sergeant by
exactly
not knowing what he's doing.
But I like when he actually talks to owners and tells them directly that, you've hired us as your property management company to manage every aspect of your property.
Yes.
We are here on your side trying to take care of your largest investment. And he always refers back to his property in Virginia, how he trusts the property management company over there, even though he has a lot less communication with those individuals
Right.
than what we do as our company, because we like to communicate with our owners and tenants quite a bit.
Well, I think that's the safest thing to say with any property management company, with anyone you choose to hire, right? If you've made a choice, an educated decision to hire a property management company, those educated decisions should be based on trust, okay? So I've been married for a long time, but it would be the same concept of going into a marriage and not trusting your spouse on either end of the spectrum, right? Husband or wife, what they're going to make for dinner. Okay, you're only going to argue about what you're going to make for dinner so many times, and then you're going to trust that person. They're going to understand your habits. They're going to understand your traits. They're going to understand what you need and what you want and what you desire, and that's what needs to happen with a property management company. Is you need to hire them based upon trust, and then that property manager will learn your traits, your habits, and what you want.
Right.
Because they're not going to manage 1,000 apiece.
No.
They're going to be capped.
No,
we cap them at a certain number. They're not going to manage endless amounts of properties. So it's very easy over time to understand your portfolio of owners and what they want and what they don't want.
Right.
Some of our owners don't ever want to be contacted. Deposit the money. Don't call me. Don't contact me. And then we have owners that want to be contacted. So that's our job is to figure that out.
And that's why we assign property managers to the properties, right? I mean, we at first you and I were managing most of the properties, and then we had some admin individuals come in and stuff like that, and we had everything kind of separated a little bit, but we were all managing all the properties, which was kind of hectic. So we decided, that wasn't very advantageous for the actual property owners because we none of us really had a good relationship with the owners, except for the individuals that actually brought the owners on, right?
Exactly.
So we separated them into the property managers. That way they can have a closer relationship with the property owners and tenants and stuff like that.
So I think the easiest way to wrap that up would be you now own a business. You now own a business. You own it. You have an investment. You're hiring a property management company to manage your investment. You've hired them to give you the advice, good, bad, and the ugly, on what to do with your investment, how to make the most money with your investment, yet how to protect your investment and keep yourself out of legal trouble.
Right.
And so that's what you've done, all with the understanding that while they are managing that property, things are going to break, things are going to get damaged, things are going to get tore up.
Those are the associated risks of owning a rental property.
Well, and you've heard me say that.
Expectations of some owners can be good or bad.
Well, I tell lots of people lots of different things based upon knowledge that I've gained over the years, but the one of the major things that I also say is if a property management company tells you that there is not an associated risk with turning your home into a rental property, they're lying to you. Because there is an associated risk the moment you make it a rental property. And those associated risks, that list could go on for miles.
Right.
Whether that be things break, things get tore up, people drive through the garage door, whatever be the case. The same things that, the same bad things that happen when you're living in your house
are still going to happen.
The same bad things are still going to happen.
Maybe a little more depending on
I
how individuals take care of the property, right? Because owners may take care of the property because they own the property a lot better than the tenants. And not to say that tenants don't take care of the properties, because we've had tenants before that.
Have you ever washed your rental car?
No.
Have you ever vacuumed out your rental car?
Not unless
I did.
Something happened.
Well, it wasn't a rental car, but I was looking at a truck one time and then I had to wash it. I'm just going to leave it at that, right? But I've never went and rented a car and washed it. I've never went and rented a car and vacuumed it.
Right.
So unfortunately, we live in a society to where folks are, not everyone, because we have a lot of amazing tenants, and I don't want to make this look like the sky's falling.
Yeah.
I won't say numbers, but we have amazing tenants that take care of the property better than I took care of my own property. So, but then you do live in a society that some folks aren't going to take care of their property, your property, the way you would take care of your property. And that's not always the case. Again, we have lots of good folks that take care of our properties.
We have tenants that really do take care of the properties, and as a property management or property manager, we go out to the properties, we take a look at them, and the property looks awesome.
We didn't even need to be there.
We didn't really need
to go.
But when we send that information to the owner, they may not meet what the owner's expectations are. So that's the frustrating part, because sometimes owners have a higher expectation of how a property should be maintained as a rental.
Then I think that goes back to, the process of a property manager's job is just not to manage your property, collect the rent, and that's it. I think a lot of that comes from a property manager's job: protect your investment, keep you and them out of legal trouble, but educate you as the homeowner. Educate you And that's a dual-sided transaction, right? Because if you're a landlord, you own a business, and as owning a business, you have to be receptive to all kind of educational tools, correct? So my point with that being is, if you become a landlord, you have to trust that property manager, and or don't get in a relationship with them. Trust them, and embrace their education, and embrace the information that they can give you, right? Because if I'm giving you bad information as a landlord, and you're not making any money, I'm not making any money. We're not making any money.
Right.
So there would be no reason for a property that I can think of. Maybe another property manager can tell me this, but there would be no reason or nothing to gain, personally, financially, nothing, but by a property manager giving you bad advice. I mean, you have a real estate license, right? And if I continually give bad information to my business partners, then I'm jeopardizing my real estate license, and I'm also jeopardizing my financial future, because you're going to have bad results. So I think those individuals need to be receptive to
educating the owners on
property management.
on
Yes.
managing the property and how maintaining the property. Everybody's different, right? I mean, we'll go out to do property assessments on the properties, and some people maintain the properties very well. Other people, they may, not maintain the property as well, as far as like cleanliness or things of that nature. Say they may have piles of clothes in one area of the house, but the house is still being maintained. And when we send those reports to the property owners, they're questioning how these individuals are maintaining the property.
Well, then that makes me think of, this is kind of went full circle back to what we initially said. This has gone full circle, right? Managing properties for owners, being in relationships with owners, and versus what we see is individuals managing their own properties. Things break, things get tore up, their expectations are not met. So, understandably so, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to become upset. You're going to dislike the process and dislike those activities in your life that are causing you that frustration,
Right.
and causing you to be upset. And
just want to get out of it altogether.
Altogether, right? You want to get out of it altogether. So it goes back full circle to say, if you're managing them by yourself, if you're managing them like a popsicle shop, if you're managing them like a lemonade stand, if you're doing it on Excel documents, and you are just at the point where you're completely frustrated because of those activities of went on at the rental property, get with us, get with a property manager, come talk to us, and let us help you relieve that frustration in your life, get it under what I consider we have very, very stringent processes and procedures, the same way every time, whatever that process is. And
we're continuously looking at those processes to improve them, right? 'Cause there's always different situations that come up.
If you continual improvement process, right?
Yes.
This is like, this single page is what I would have done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In lots of different processes, and we can go back and print some of those
Well,
documents.
I've seen some,
and everybody
still in the drive.
Everybody would laugh.
Yeah.
Right. So that one document's now probably turned into 100 documents. So my point with this is, if you're doing it by yourself, if you have another property management company that can help you get that process in order, we would love to help you. But again, there's got to be someone out there that can help you build a great relationship and get those processes in order to relieve those frustrations and to help you further expand that portfolio, create larger investment, create larger opportunities. So we don't want someone, and I've seen this happen, you've seen this happen, I don't want someone to be so frustrated with that process they sell an asset.
Right.
And we've seen that. We've seen people come to us at the point in time to
Just
where
quit.
they're done. Like, sell it. It's like a bad car, right?
Right.
Like Leela's car, right?
Yeah.
It broke so many times, that when she totaled it, you were glad,
Yeah.
right? If it's like the processes went so bad with this house for this owner, if they could wreck it, they would crash it to get rid of it.
Yeah, we've had several owners.
Don't
do
get
that.
there. Don't get there. Come, find us. Find someone that can help you out. Again, it falls back to what we talked about. Find someone to help you operate the business that you now got into. You may have got into it willingly, by choice. You may have got into it by default.
Right.
Don't create for you what we always talk about. Don't create the cycle of suck for you of being a landlord. And let us give you some advice and some information to help you further that process.
So in this podcast, we actually obviously talked about a whole bunch of different topics. A lot of these topics can be expanded on, and we will probably do future podcasts on specific things that we covered today. It's just this was just a general information, and there's just a lot of information that we can cover out of the stuff that we just spoke about, right?
Well, and I think some of the things that we need to commit to talk about in the future is how we can help show individuals how we can help you create, how we can help you use our screening criteria, how we can help enforce the lease, and even if it's a lease you already have in place, we can help you enforce that lease, what you have to do to be required to enforce that lease. Creating periodic checks of the property. You mentioned assessments, going out and looking at that property. Are you allowed to? Are you allowed to go look at the property? Right. That's all based on your lease, but we can help you with that. Following through with lease violations, helping with potential evictions, how to head off evictions, how to get all those things back into wraps. So those are topics that we can break down more and topics that we can get into in the future. And again, feedback on what people that are watching this want to hear about.
Yeah, exactly.
That can even drive our topics better, drive our topics in the direction of what does the audience want to hear, and that'll help. So if there's a topic someone wants to hear about, bring that in, and let's do a brainstorming session around it. Let's talk about those things.
Yeah. So we want to thank you for watching this podcast. If you haven't watched our first podcast, you should be able to just click on it on our YouTube channel. And like Jason said, put some comments down below. That way we know if what we're talking about is something you either enjoy or you don't enjoy, or is there things that you want us to cover in future podcasts, and hopefully in the future we'll actually do some live podcasts and we can actually get some individuals to call in and or text in some questions and things of that nature. So
and I was just telling you too, Pete, that I think these are important. These are important for us. We get in that process of doing the same thing every day. We get caught in those traps of the mouse trap of life.
Exactly.
And this helps us see what we're doing right, see what we're doing wrong, see what we can do to improve our processes.
Yeah, because sometimes we're like kind of stuck here.
You got you got blinders on.
We think everything is going well. Some things will come up here and there, but unless we hear from individuals, sometimes we won't know. So yeah, if you go ahead and comment below, that would be great. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like or dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down button. And check us out on other platforms. So we do have Instagram, we do have Facebook,
right?
And not too much on Snapchat because I'm still trying to learn that. But
well, that I think it's important, and you've hit on this already. But if you're happy, unhappy, undecided, let us know. I mean, we don't do everything right, and if we've done or are doing something that's wrong, tell us. Let's improve it. Let's work on it together. And I think that goes without saying is that we want to continually improve this process, and we want to help educate the public. So anything we can do to help. And again, we'll be back doing this next week.
Yep. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.